I died on my wedding day. Not from a stray bullet or a poison chalice like in some trashy novel, but from the slow, venomous unraveling of everything I thought was mine, my fiancé's betrayal slicing deeper than any knife, his mother's machinations twisting the knife until my heart just
stopped.
1 minute. I'm screaming in the bridal suite, mascara streaked and hysterical as the venue crumbles around me. The next, I'm choking on bridal lilies in a hospital bed, monitors flatlining while Evelyn, that viper in Chanel, whispers prayers she doesn't mean. And then, nothing. Blackness. Until the world snapped back into focus, and I was 28 again, staring at my reflection in the mirror of that same godforsaken bridal suite, 2 weeks before the big day.
众星.
They call it in those Korean dramas I binge-watched during law school hangovers. But this was my American Nightmare reboot, and I wasn't about to hit play without rewriting the script. My name is Caroline Hayes, and in my first life, I was the fool who believed love could outrun family money and old grudges. Born in the sticky heat of Savannah, Georgia, I clawed my way to Atlanta on scholarships and spite, trading sweet tea for skyscrapers and becoming a junior associate at a firm that specialized in divorce settlements for the 1%ers. That's where I met David Harrington III, tall, blonde, with that easy wasp smile that hid a spine made of wet cardboard. He was the golden boy of Harrington Investments, heir to a fortune built on Atlanta real estate deals that smelled faintly of backroom bribes. We met at a charity gala, me in a borrowed dress, him in a tux that cost more than my rent. Sparks. Champagne. The whole rom-com reel. 6 months later, he proposed on the balcony of his Buckhead penthouse, the city lights winking like they approved. But Evelyn Harrington? David's mother was the shadow in every frame. 62. With the kind of face that Botox kept perpetually surprised, she ran the family like a hostile takeover. Widowed young after Daddy Harrington dropped dead from a sudden aneurysm, whispers said stress from her endless affairs. Evelyn had molded David into her perfect puppet. She hated me from the jump. A Southern girl with no pedigree, she'd sneer over high tea, her voice like iced bourbon. David needs someone who understands legacy.
Not
litigation. I laughed it off at first. Brushed it under the rug of wedding planning, telling myself it was just mother-in-law jitters. God, was I wrong? 2 weeks before the wedding, my second chance now. But Helen the First, I'd locked in the Azalea Inn, a historic spot on the Chattahoochee with ivy-draped ballrooms and a view that screamed old money romance without the snobbery. I'd poured my savings into it, negotiated every detail, the string quartet, the magnolia centerpieces, the caramelized Georgia peaches for dessert. David was thrilled. Or so he pretended.
babe.
It's perfect, he'd say, kissing my temple while scrolling emails on his phone. But Evelyn? She played the supportive role to perfection, offering advice on the guest list, insisting on seating her bridge club cronies front and center. Then, the morning of the final fitting, my phone buzzed with an email from the inn, cancellation notice, due to unforeseen circumstances. My stomach dropped faster than a bad stock tip. I called, frantic. The manager stammered something about a conflicting booking, a higher priority event that overrode our contract. Higher priority? We'd signed 6 months ago. I drove to the inn in a haze, heels clicking on the marble lobby floor, only to find the ballroom doors flung wide for a Harrington family brunch. And there, holding court at the head table, was Evelyn, toasting with mimosas to new beginnings. You bitch, I hissed when I cornered her in the powder room, the air thick with perfume and lies. She didn't even flinch, just powdered her nose with that pearl-handled compact. Caroline, darling, it was a simple mix-up. David's father and I hosted so many events here. They owe us favors. Favors. That's what she called pulling strings with the owners, old golf buddies who'd fold like cheap lawn chairs. But the real gut punch? She wasn't done. I've taken the liberty of rescheduling at Peachtree Country Club. It's far more appropriate. Your ex-husband's a member. Isn't he? Mark would love to see you settled.
Mark.
My ex from law school. The charming asshole who'd cheated with his TA and left me drowning in alimony fights. Peachtree was his kingdom. The club where he'd proposed to his new trophy wife amid whispers of my hysterical divorce filing. Evelyn knew it would gut me, parading me down that aisle like a trophy of her conquest. She wasn't just canceling a venue, she was staging a public humiliation, forcing me to relive my biggest failure under the chandeliers where Mark's crowd still snickered about poor Caroline. In my first life, I crumbled. I called David in tears. He sided with Mommy Dearest, cooing that it was no big deal.
Babe.
It'll be beautiful. I swallowed it, rearranged everything on a shoestring, showed up at Peachtree in my gown feeling like a fraud. The wedding was a circus, Mark toasting us with smug pity, Evelyn beaming like she'd birthed the whole farce. But the betrayal didn't stop there. On our honeymoon flight to Napa, David's phone lit up with texts from her. Don't let her ruin you. Sign the prenup revisions tonight. Revisions? The ones that locked me out of his assets if I ever abandoned the family? He'd gaslit me into signing them months ago. But that night, drunk on wedding wine, he confessed Evelyn had been grooming him for a merger marriage with Amelia Voss, heiress to a pharma empire. I was the placeholder, the fun phase before the real deal. I confronted him in our suite, the Golden Gate Bridge, mocking me through the window. He laughed, actually laughed, saying I was overreacting. Like always. That's when the chest pains hit. Sharp as shattered glass. Stress, the doctors said later. Aortic dissection from years of grinding anxiety. The kind that festers in women who apologize for existing. I flatlined in the ambulance. Evelyn's crocodile tears the last thing I saw. She was always so fragile, she'd tell the eulogies.
Now?
Back in that mirror. My hands younger, unscarred, trembling on the sink. I laughed. A real, jagged laugh that echoed off the tiles. Fragile? No more. I'd clawed through law school on spite. I'd bury Evelyn on technicalities. This time, I wouldn't beg or bend. I'd build the trap she'd spring herself into. Revenge wasn't a dish best served cold. It was a southern slow burn, sweet as pecan pie with arsenic hidden inside. First move, play dumb. I texted David a heart emoji about the fitting, then drove to my office in Midtown, the skyline a jagged promise. As a divorce lawyer, I knew leverage like scripture. Evelyn thought she owned the board, but I'd been digging since the engagement party. Whispers about Daddy Harrington's aneurysm, not so sudden after all. A quick dive into public records confirmed it. Toxicology reports buried under a settlement. Traces of something untraceable in his system. Not enough for murder, but enough for suspicion. And Evelyn? Her charity work funded shell companies that funneled cash to offshore accounts. David's inheritance was a house of cards, propped up by her dirty deals. But the real goldmine?
Mark.
My ex wasn't just a club member. He was Evelyn's dirty little secret keeper. During our divorce, He'd let slip over too many scotches that he'd handled discreet paperwork for the Harringtons, non-competes, NDAs, the kind that silenced ex-employees with payout crumbs. Mark owed me. Big time. I texted him from a burner app. Lunch at the Varsity. We need to talk about old favors and your Peachtree tab. He showed, squirming in his Brooks Brothers polo.
The one I used to iron.
Caroline? What the hell? I thought we were ancient history. I slid a folder across the greasy checkered table, divorce depositions I'd never filed. The ones proving he'd hidden assets in his TA's name. Ancient? You mean the history where you begged me not to countersue? Sign this venue release for my wedding? Or these go public? And while you're at it, book Peachtree for the Harrington brunch next month. Tell Evelyn it's a surprise gift from David. Mark paled, but he nodded. Leverage was my love language now. By evening, the azalea in email reversed. Deepest apologies, booking secured. Evelyn's mix-up undone without her knowing. But I wasn't stopping there. The country club twist? I'd flip it. Let her think she'd won. Parade me through Mark's domain like a defeated debutante. Then, at the reception, I dropped the bomb. Not just her financial skeletons, but David's too. The prenup revisions? I'd forged a counterversion months ago, notarized by a clerk in her pocket. It funneled her gifts back to a trust in my name if the marriage tanked. Poetic.
Right?
David came home late, reeking of Evelyn's perfume. Wait.
No.
That was cologne from her driver. Babe. Mom mentioned the venue switch. You okay? I smiled. The kind that didn't reach my eyes. And poured him a scotch. Never better. But let's make it epic. Invite Amelia Voss as a bridesmaid. Mom would love that. He blinked. Confused, but agreed. Hook.
Line. Sinker.
As the days blurred into final fittings and false smiles, I felt the old Caroline fading, the one who'd apologized for her thrift store shoes at country club galas. This version? She was forged in fire, eyes sharp as a deposition cross-exam. Evelyn's brunch at the inn went off without a hitch, her laughter echoing as I accidentally spilled mimosa on her heirloom brooch. Clumsy girl, she muttered. I just grinned. Wouldn't be the first spill in this family. The wedding week dawned humid, Atlanta's summer grip unrelenting. Rehearsal dinner at Evelyn's mansion in Ansley Park, white columns, crystal chandeliers, the works. She cornered me in the powder room again, that same compact clicking open. Caroline, be a dear and sign these last-minute guest RSVPs. David's added a few. Associates. The list included Amelia Voss, circled in red. I scanned it, heart steady. Tucked inside, a draft of the prenup revisions, and signed. Amateur. I signed nothing. Instead, I folded the paper into my clutch, the crinkle like a promise. Of course, Evelyn. Anything for family. Her eyes narrowed, that Botox forehead creasing just a fraction. She smelled blood, mine, she thought, but the shark was circling her now. Dinner dragged, toasts to eternal bonds, lobster bisque that tasted like ash in my mouth. David droned on about our future empire, his hand heavy on my thigh under the table, oblivious to the storm brewing. Amelia Voss arrived late, a vision in emerald silk, her laugh tinkling like wind chimes in a hurricane. Evelyn watched her like a proud hen, while I sipped wine and plotted. That night, in the penthouse, David collapsed into bed, snoring off the bourbon. I slipped into his study, the one with the mahogany desk and locked drawers. In my first life, I'd respected his boundaries. This time, boundaries were for the living. A paperclip, and 5 minutes later, the bottom drawer yawned open. Files on Harrington Investments. Dog-eared ledgers with Voss Pharma logos. Merger talks. Dated back to our engagement party. And there, buried under yellowed memos, a flash drive labeled EH. Private. Heart pounding. I plugged it into my laptop. Password? Tried David's birthday, nothing. Our anniversary?
Zilch.
Then,
Spitefully.
Evelyn's, 1962. The year she snagged Daddy Harrington. Jackpot. Videos first, grainy security footage from the Harrington estate. Timestamped the night before his aneurysm. Evelyn in the kitchen, pouring nightcap scotch. Her back to the camera as she stirred something in, powdery, deliberate, from a vial marked for sleep. No face on the poison, but the timestamps matched the autopsy window. Then, emails, chains with Mark,
My ex.
billing hours for estate planning that funneled Harrington assets into Evelyn's trusts post-widowhood. She'd played the grieving wife while siphoning millions, using David's name as cover. But the kicker? A folder on me. Hayes.
C.
Vulnerabilities. Photos from my divorce, me sobbing in court. Mark's deposition transcripts twisted to paint me as unstable. Notes in Evelyn's script, leverage for prenup. Push David to end it clean. She'd been dismantling me from the shadows, whispering to David that I was high maintenance, not club material. The merger with Amelia? It wasn't just business. It was Evelyn's redemption arc. Trading her disappointment son for a daughter-in-law who matched her mold. I ejected the drive, pulse thundering, and emailed copies to my secure server. Lawyer habits die hard. Then, a text to Mark. Double or nothing. Get me Evelyn's guest list for the reception. Every name. He replied in seconds. You're insane.
Done.
Morning brought bridal jitters, or so I let David think. Babe, you seem off, he said over coffee. Scrolling Bloomberg. I forced a smile, tracing his jaw. Just nerves. But after this, we're unbreakable. He bought it, kissing me like I was still the placeholder. By noon, I was at the Azalea Inn, overseeing setups, fairy lights in the Oaks, a custom cake with edible gold, my money, my rules. The staff buzzed, apologetic about the glitch. I waved it off, slipping the manager an extra grand.
Keep it quiet.
Family drama. Evelyn called that afternoon. Voice syrupy. Darling. About the venue, such a fuss. But Peachtree called. They're thrilled for the switch back. But I've already moved things along there. Wouldn't want to inconvenience. Inconvenience? She'd double-booked to force my hand, thinking I'd cave. No worries, I purred. Azalea's all set. David's excited. Silence. Then a clipped. We'll see.
Click.
She was scrambling now. I could feel it, the first crack in her facade. The days melted into a frenzy, bachelorette at a rooftop bar in Midtown, where my girls, real friends, not Evelyn spies, roasted me gently about trading up from Mark. I laughed. But inside, I was stealing for the drop. Eve of the wedding, I met Mark at a dive in Decatur, away from prying eyes. He slid an envelope across the scarred booth. Evelyn's RSVPs, marked with alliances, Voss Pharma execs, Harrington board members, even a state senator with ties to her charities. She's pulling out all stops, he muttered, nursing a beer. Thinks this wedding seals the merger. I nodded, sliding him a USB. Then give her this. Anonymous tip to her inbox tomorrow. From a concerned board member. It was edited footage, just enough blur to suggest, not prove, her kitchen poor. Planted doubt. The kind that festers in boardrooms.
Why?
Mark asked, eyes wary. You always were the vindictive one. I leaned in, voice low. Because she canceled more than a venue.
Mark.
She canceled me. He shrugged, old habits, but took the drive. As I left, rain slicking the streets, I felt the weight lift. Just a fraction. This wasn't just revenge, it was reclamation. My life. My terms. Wedding morning dawned brutal, thunder rumbling over the river. Skies bruised purple. David texted from a groom's suite at the inn. Storm's coming. You still want this? I replied. More than ever. In the bridal suite, mirrors fogged from my shallow breaths. I slipped into the gown, ivory silk, fitted like armor. My mother, flown in from Savannah, fussed with my veil, her hands trembling. You look like a queen, Caro. Don't let them dim your light. Tears pricked. She didn't know the half. But as the first guests arrived, hats and seersucker for the men, pastel sheets for the women, the air hummed with anticipation. Evelyn swept in last, resplendent in sapphire, her smile ablaze. Caroline, radiant, as always. She handed me a pearl necklace, heirloom from Daddy Harrington. A token. For luck. I clasped it, feeling the cool weight. Thank you.
It's
fitting. Her eyes flickered. Did she sense the shift? The ceremony unfolded under a tent, rain pattering like applause. David waited at the altar, handsome as sin. But I saw the cracks now, the way his gaze darted to Amelia in the front row, her hand on some exec's arm. Vows exchanged. Rings slid on, mine a Harrington family antique, engraved with forever. The kiss sealed it. Crowd erupting. But my mind was on the reception. That's where the real vows would break. Azalea Inn's ballroom glowed, chandeliers dripping light onto linen-draped tables. Guests mingled, Atlanta elite, their laughter a shield against the storm outside. I circulated, champagne flute in hand, playing the blushing bride. Evelyn held court near the cake, Amelia orbiting like a satellite. David pulled me aside mid-toast.
babe.
Mom's got that look. Something up? I kissed his cheek. Just wedding magic. But as the quartet struck up at last, I caught Mark's nod from the bar. Tip delivered. Evelyn's phone buzzed. She glanced, face draining of color. Excused herself, whispering to a bored suit who frowned, then pulled out his own device. Dance floor filled, skirts swirling. David twirled me, oblivious, but I scanned for her return. There, storming back, eyes like flints, cornering David by the bar. I let them stew, accepting congratulations from my law firm mentor, old sorority sisters. Then, the MC announced the mother-son dance. Evelyn and David swayed stiffly to some Sinatra standard, her whispers urgent, his nods wooden. When it ended, she bolted for the powder room. Opportunity. I followed, veil trailing like a ghost. Door ajar. I heard her on the phone. Mark. You idiot, what is this? Footage? Fix it. Silence. Then his voice tinny. Can't. Evelyn. It's out. Board's calling an audit.
Click.
She emerged, makeup flawless, but hands shaking, straight into me. Caroline. Enjoying the festivities. Her voice cracked. Just once. Immensely, I said, stepping close. Though, I hear there's a storm brewing. Offshore kind. Her pearls tightened around her neck. What do you know? I smiled.
Slow.
Enough. Like how Daddy's nightcap wasn't so accidental. Or how the Voss merger's DOA if the SEC sniffs those ledgers. She gasped, hand to chest performance, but real fear underneath. You wouldn't. For David. For me, I corrected. You cancel my venue to break me. Booked Peachtree to parade my failures. But here's the twist. Evelyn, I never switched back. This, all of it, my doing. Her eyes widened, comprehension dawning. The in-staff. Loyal to my cash, the RSVPs rerouted to throw her off. She'd been dancing in my ballroom all night. Voss execs toasting a phantom wedding at her precious club. You little, she lunged, nails out. But I sidestepped, years of spin class paying off. Guests turned, murmurs rising. David pushed through. Mom? Carl? What's going on? Evelyn whirled on him. Hysterical now. She's ruined us. The files. The merger, it's her. David blinked, caught in the crossfire. As I pulled the pearl necklace free, dangling it like evidence. Ruined?
No.
Evelyn. Expose. I dropped it to the floor, pearls scattering like lies. The room hushed. Phones out, recording the matriarch's meltdown. Sirens wailed distant, storm or scandal. Didn't matter. My plan was unfolding. Word for vicious word. Chaos erupted like fireworks on the 4th, guests gasping. Chairs scraping as Evelyn clutched David's arm. Her facade shattering into sobs. Tell them. David. She's lying. She's the snake. But David. Poor malleable David. Stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Caro? What files? Merger? I could see the pieces slotting in his addled brain. The late nights. The whispers. The prenup pressure. His mother's empire. Crumbling under the weight of her own greed. I stepped forward, voice steady amid the din. Ask her about the drive. David. The one in your desk. Or better yet, check your email. Board's already auditing. He fumbled for his phone, face paling as notifications flooded in. Voss execs bolting for the exits. Amelia's laugh turning brittle as she fielded calls. Evelyn lunged again, this time for my clutch, smart. She knew I had copies, but security, tipped off by my morning call, materialized. Gentle but firm. Ma'am. Please. She shrieked. A sound raw as exposed wire. This is my event. My family. But it wasn't. Not anymore. The quartet faltered to silence, replaced by the storm's roar through open French doors. I turned to the crowd, veil discarded like yesterday's news, my gown pooling at my feet as I kicked off heels for traction. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. But it seems the Harrington legacy has some housekeeping. Laughter rippled, nervous, then genuine from my side of the aisle. My mentor raised a glass. To new beginnings. Evelyn collapsed into a chair, mascara rivers on her cheeks. As cops arrived, not for me, but for the anonymous tip I'd routed through Mark, fraud suspicions. Enough for a warrant on her accounts. David grabbed my arm, eyes wild. Babe, Caroline, this is insane. We can fix it. Call it off. Start over. Start over? The words ignited something feral in me. In my first life, I'd begged for scraps of that. Honeymoons turned interventions. Therapy sessions where he echoed her script.
No.
This was my twist, not just exposing her, but freeing him. Or breaking him. Fix it. I wrenched free. Voice carrying. Like you fixed the prenup? Or the merger that made me the rebound. Gasp swelled. Amelia froze mid-exit. Phone limp. He stammered. I mean. Mom said it was business. Evelyn howled. Don't you dare. But it was too late. The dam broke. David. Cornered. Spilled. The pressure. The affairs she'd covered for him. Junior execs at the firm. Whispered since the engagement. The way she'd dangled disinheritance if he didn't man up with Amelia. I loved you. Caro. I swear.
Loved.
Past tense. The crowd ate it up. A live soap opera with $100 plates. But here's the controversial call. The one that'd haunt op-eds for weeks. I didn't walk. I stayed. Grabbed the mic from the MC. Rain lashing the tent like judgment. David Harrington. Do you take this mess, the audits, the lies, the mother who poisoned her own blood for a bigger slice? Because I take none of it. I yanked the ring off, tossing it into the oyster bar, where it sank amid pearls and ice. Then, to Evelyn, pinned by officers now cuffing her wrists, enjoy Peachtree. Evelyn. Mark's waiting, your real partner in crime. She spat. You'll regret this. You trailer trash climber, but her venom bounced off. I was bulletproof. The arrest was swift, prelim charges, fraud, embezzlement. The footage enough for manslaughter review on Daddy Harrington. Voss pulled the merger by dawn. Amelia jetting to New York with a non-disclosure and a hangover. David? He vanished into the night, tail between legs. A text at 3 a.m. I'm sorry. Get the penthouse. I did. Selling it for a tidy sum that seeded my own firm, Hayes and Associates, specializing in whistleblower suits for jilted heirs. Twist? It wasn't all ashes. 6 months later, combing Evelyn's seized files for my pro bono case, I found the real secret. Not just her greed, but her fear. Letters from a clinic, dated post-Daddy's death, early dementia, the kind that'd strip her empire bare. She'd poisoned him not for money, but mercy, twisted logic, but it humanized the monster.
No.
Scratch that, she was still a monster. Just one with cracks. I leaked it anonymously to her lawyer. A plea deal. House arrest in a gated nowhere. Assets frozen but life intact. Controversial? Hell yes. Forgiveness as revenge? The blogs called it Stockholm Syndrome chic. But it let me sleep, knowing I'd stripped her power without becoming her.
Now.
A year on, Atlanta's my kingdom. The Azalea Inn? I bought the event's wing. Rebranding as Second Chances Pavilion. Weddings only, no funerals. My firm's thriving. Cases for women like First Life me. Gaslit. Grounded down. And love, turns out, it's in the quiet coffee with my mentor, who left his wife for a clarity he credits to my performance art reception. Or the barista at Octane, with tattoos and no last name, who asks about my day without an agenda. I died once, betrayed by the ones closest. Reborn. I didn't just survive, I scripted the fall. And if that's causing controversy,
Good.
America loves a comeback story with teeth. Mine's got fangs.